I am here in Birmingham with my friends from Tactical Faith as they're graciously helping me produce content for Merely Human Ministries website. And I was working on a blog post about the Reproductive Health Act that had happened in New York, about what was going on in Virginia and Vermont, with legislature suggested that would eliminate any considerations for the unborn at all under the law. And so they graciously offered up the opportunity. Let's just make this a video blog. So rather than write things down, we'll talk them out for just a moment. I think recently, my friend and mentor, Scott Klusendorf, posted a very important article on Desiring God's website. It's an article that argues that we didn't win anything when Donald Trump won the election. We survived. When Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton, it wasn't D-Day, it was Dunkirk. Now, it may seem like a great victory, and it may be at the end a victory that leads to the great victory, but his point is there is a lot of fighting still to go. Now, what made that article, I think, demonstrated the clarity with which he's seeing the landscape so well was almost immediately after him publishing that article, Governor Cuomo in New York signed the Reproductive Health Act that pulled any consideration from the unborn in the law in New York. And then shortly after that, Vermont suggested something similar. Virginia suggested something similar. Legislators in Vermont and Virginia suggested something similar in those states. So as if to demonstrate that Scott is seeing things clearly, the other side pushed back, and they pushed back hard. So I've been asked a couple of questions, and I'm going to try to address very quickly in a limited fashion here on this video, two of them. Number one, why is this happening? Well, the easy answer to why this is happening is that we picked a fight. Okay, what's happening is that in a fear that Roe is actually going to come to an end, these states are securing a Roe environment in a post-Roe world. So they're looking at the makeup of the Supreme Court. They're looking at it and saying it's very possible that some case will get to the Supreme Court and that this Supreme Court, as it's currently constituted, will overturn Roe. Now, that does not mean that abortion is illegal. There's some people who have a misunderstanding of that. What that means is now abortion law returns back to the states. What Roe was doing was that it was forbidding the states from making decisions locally about what was happening within their borders and saying that there was a federal law, a constitutional right that was protected, a right to privacy that meant that all abortion law must reflect this constitutional right in all 50 states. So if Roe goes, if Doe goes, if Planned Parenthood versus Casey all go, then what that means is it goes back to the states, and they now have the ability to set their own law. So what New York is doing, what Virginia is attempting to doing, what Vermont is attempting to do, what other states are going to attempt to do or have already done is establish a Roe environment within their state law in a post-Roe world. Roe will no longer exist, but their state will continue to protect. Look, it's not like New York was a place that was friendly to the unborn. As horrifying as what they said under law is, New York has somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, about 93,000 abortions every year in the state of New York, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 62 or 63,000 a year in New York City alone. That number, by the way, that New York City has, according to the CDC, is greater than every other state other than the state of California in all probability, because they don't voluntarily report to the CDC, and the state of Florida, which is sitting somewhere in the 70,000+ per year, according to the CDC, just New York City alone. So it's not like they were having to correct an injustice towards reproductive right in their state. What they want to do is secure a continuing ability for abortion to exist that way within the borders of New York in a post-Roe world. And that's what's happening. That's what's going on. But why it's happening, I said, is because we picked a fight. As Scott said, the election of President Trump was Dunkirk, not D-Day. It was the moment that we survived to continue the battle. But when I say we picked a fight, what I mean is that we wanted the ability to have this out, a necessary step towards the end of abortion. The goal of all of this, I believe, one way of putting it would be able to say, our goal as pro-lifers is to create a culture that both rejects abortion as immoral and accepts laws that recognize that reality or that truth. So that's the legitimate goal of the pro-life movement, a culture that rejects abortion as immoral, but and at the same time accepts laws that reflect that truth. And so in order to get there, Roe had to go. And there have been forces within the church, there have been forces within the Christian community, there have been forces on the conservative side for years that have told pro-lifers, just back off, back down, Take little bits here at a time. Just do what you have to do to get along. We can get other things done that are more important than this. You're never going to end abortion. You're never going to make meaningful change. You're never going to change anybody's minds. And we wouldn't let it go. We kept fighting, and we kept fighting rightly, establishing organizations that are doing good work in all facets of this area. We have Americans United for Life and ADF working on law. You have Students for Life of America, Protect Like Michigan, We Dignify in Illinois. You have these organizations all over the country that are reaching students with this message. You have Life Training Institute, where I've worked for the last 8 years under Scott Klusendorf, taking the message into high schools and equipping people to talk. You have Created Equal and other organizations like Center for Bioethical Reform that are out there making people see the injustice of abortion and all of its ugliness. And there's more than I can possibly mention here. You have the Radiance Foundation out there with Ryan Baumberger out there confronting the racist nature of abortion and how the disproportionate number of Black lives that are lost through this versus other communities. You have all of these organizations that never gave up, kept pushing the point and kept fighting, and they helped create the environment that we live in now, where the other side is afraid that Roe will go. This was a necessary, though not sufficient, step to get to where we want to go. Why is this happening? Because it's exactly what we wanted. We wanted the opportunity to have this fight at a local level. We want the opportunity for it to go back to the states, and for us then to have the responsibility and the ability to go to local people and convince them that we're right. This reminds me, it has reminded me all along of a scene from Braveheart, where you have the armies aligning, the British army and the Scottish army aligning. And on the field of battle, the lords have gone out there to try to negotiate terms that are beneficial to the lords. But William Wallace, who is all dressed up and, what is obviously pointed out as historically inaccurate for the Scottish, but dressed up in his battle gear, looks to his men and he says, they say, "Where are you going?" And he says, "I'm going to pick a fight." You see, he's not going to accept the negotiations that will end up benefiting the lords, but will not benefit the people of Scotland. And so he goes to pick a fight. And he drives out. And that's what I see as what the pro-life movement has done. We won't accept those things that will benefit the other lords that would rather stand back. We're fighting for the rights of the unborn to be treated equally, to have equal dignity, and for all of us to treat them with dignity and respect and recognize the wrongness of abortion. And what's great at that moment is Hamish, his best friend, looks to the person standing next to him and says, "Well, I guess we didn't get all dressed up for nothing." That, to me, is the response that we need to be having right now as pro-lifers. We didn't get dressed up for nothing. We didn't get ourselves ready for this fight over all of these years. We didn't start all of these organizations. We didn't equip ourselves with resources to worry now that we're actually getting exactly what we want. It may be there. We may have the opportunity to have this fight at a local level. So what I wanted to do with this is to encourage people, not the people in the pro-life movement that I know have already met this challenge, but all of the people that are just finding out what the Roe environment that they live in means, that the health exception under Doe versus Bolton means that in the United States, abortion is legal through all 9 months if a doctor will certify that it is a health reason that he is performing the abortion. And those health reasons are not just life of the mother or physical health of the mother, but that their mental health of the mother, their familial health, psychological health, and age of the mother. It says all factors could be considered, and always to the benefit of the mother. That's what Doe versus Bolton says. If the doctor thinks that he has a reason to perform the abortion, he can override viability concerns in any state in the union as a constitutionally protected right. That's the environment we live in, and many people are just finding that out. But upon finding that out and feeling horrified and feeling powerless, I want to encourage everybody. We're here because we picked a fight, and we got all dressed up for this, and we're ready to go. What we need now are the foot soldiers. What we need now are the people in the pews, the children at the schools, the Christians out there who are, their conscience has been pricked to equip themselves to find some way to engage this argument, whether it's your local pregnancy resource center, whether it's schools inviting in Life Training Institute or Merely Human Ministries to talk to your students. Both of our organizations have donors that'll make it possible for us to come and talk to your students at almost no cost or no cost to you at all if you're willing to give us assemblies and the right to be in front of you. We have Americans United for Life and ADF fighting on the legal side of things. You have organizations out there working for students. Find somebody that meets your area of interest, engage them, find some way to help them, find some way to get involved. We have the resources ready. We're all dressed up and ready to fight. This is what had to happen. Of course, the other side's pushing back. They want to protect what they believe is a right. Now, we have to be prepared to make our argument. We have to be prepared to engage them. We have to take all of you who have been activated by this news that you live in a world that may have been far worse than you thought you did and how it treats the unborn, and to take from that the inspiration to find the people who picked this fight in the first place because they're ready to help you get active.